That's part of my situation. We don't really have too many people that stand. And former White House advisor to Lieutenant Diane violence against women. Is that not the business training center?
It is now 1:30, and we're going to start our meeting. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Town of Highland Beach Town Commission regular meeting, Thursday, October 3rd, 2019, at 1:30 p.m. in the Commission chambers. Kindly silence your cell phones. Town Clerk, please read the roll call.
Commissioner David. Present. Commissioner Gossick-Seidman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bobby.
Present.
Mayor Zellniker.
Here.
Town Attorney Tercivia.
Here.
Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
And Commissioner Donaldson is absent.
Okay, then we're going to go to our pledge. We will all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our troops. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Additions, deletions, and approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda, Commissioners?
Yes, I have a deletion.
A
Please.
deletion? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Item 12C under new business, please. This was only in the talking stages, and I wasn't prepared to really check on the plans yet. I'd asked for the budget, and knowing that we're watching our dollars, I did have a free place to stay, but as it turns out, I have another commitment, actually a mini high school reunion that same week, and so please remove it. And lastly, for the commission to know, I do have contacts in Tallahassee if we need any further assistance for Marshall to talk to, if we need any further assistance on the legislative process. There will be people attending that who can report back to us on our behalf. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to delete 12C. Thank you. Civility pledge, Town Clerk, please read.
For the record, is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
Make a motion to accept the agenda as revised.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, civility pledge. We will be respectful of one another even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issue. We will avoid personal attacks. Politeness costs so little, by Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you. Before our commission today is the proclamation proclaiming the month of October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. All commissioners received a copy of the proclamation, and all residents can view it on our website. And I would like to introduce Chief Greg Hartman at this time.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for time on the agenda to present this. As you know, you've done this before. We've done this in the past, as many municipalities do. So most of you know that I've been involved with ABDA for quite a number of years. Fantastic group that do much needed work in our community, unfortunately. But October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it's something that we focus on as an agency, as a police department, in partnership together, and it's something that we always want to get out to the public. So there's such a need for that, and it's so important that they understand the services that are available and the people that are able to use them. We live in a safe community. Unfortunately, we're not immune to these type of issues, though. So it's important we stay focused on that, the awareness on that, and I want to be able to give this proclamation that you signed, thank you, to the program services, Jennifer Ray, Director of Program Services for ABDA, who does a really amazing job over the years of being in the community, of educating our youth, the programs that ABDA has put in place to stop these cycles of violence and domestic abuse. And those are critical, and the awareness is part of that. So if I can present this to Jennifer Ray, Director of Program Services, a proclamation from the town of Highland Beach declaring October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Jennifer, you want to say a few words to them?
Thank you, Chief.
so much.
Appreciate it.
Please, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Zelniker, Vice Mayor Bobby, and Commissioners. Thank you so much, as well as the members of the Highland Beach community. Over my last 18 and a half years with ABDA, I've really appreciated, and our agency has appreciated, the commitment from the town of Highland Beach for our services and fundraising efforts. This morning, we were very honored to have our opening ceremonies to mark Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in Palm Beach County. We were up at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Training Center on Cherry Road for an opening ceremony where we had over 120 service providers, leaders, and community members dedicated to eradicating the issue of domestic violence there with us. And our keynote speaker was actually Lynn Rosenthal, former White House advisor to Obama and Biden on violence against women. And she was there to inspire us to continue the movement to end domestic violence. So I appreciate your commitment in proclaiming Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in Highland Beach. Thank you for your time.
We thank you very much. Thank you.
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes, certainly.
I just want to share a few facts. First of all, it's great to see you again.
You too.
Domestic violence is actually it's a nationwide issue, but it's also a really big issue here in Palm Beach County. They think domestic violence costs the nation about $12 billion a year in missed work and healthcare issues and that sort of stuff. There are 4,000 cases of domestic violence in Palm Beach County last year. The ABDA shelter serves 400 people, right?
Yeah.
And is pretty much at full capacity all the time. Domestic violence hits every socioeconomic level, the wealthy, the poor, and everything in between. And for those of us who have wives or daughters, 1 in every 4 women will experience some sort of domestic violence in their life. Really scary, scary stuff. So the ABDA group has a hotline, 800-355-8547. If anyone needs it, call it. If you know someone who might need it, share it with them. And my wife and I are big supporters of ABDA. They are amazingly efficient in their
This is true.
donations.
Our last audit showed that our administrative and fundraising costs combined were just under 9%.
So if you have the wherewithal, it's a place where you can make donations and it's really needed and carefully taken care of.
And if you donate to our Purple Pajama Party during this month, which is online, and you can easily find it on our website at avdaonline.org, your donations will actually be matched by an anonymous family foundation up to $30,000. So any support towards our goal to raise that $30,000 would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Any other comments, Commissioners? Commissioner Seidman? Any? No? Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. We appreciate the work that you do, because it's not just physical violence, it's mental violence as well.
Absolutely.
And we're all for women, and as you know, we have 3 women sitting up here. Thank
I
you.
noticed.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Okay, and now we go to number 8, boards and committees, announcements. Board vacancies, interview. oh,
Mayor,
What?
public comments. Public
Wait.
comments.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Number 7, public comments and requests, non-agenda items only. Non-agenda items only. Public comments are now open. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to speak on non-agenda items only. All comments will be directed to the commission as a body through the presiding officer. Please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Come to the podium, clearly speak into the microphone, state your first and last name and address for the record. Is the microphone on? Another yes? Okay. Yes, Jane?
I'm assuming it's on video now. I don't know if the cameras are working or not. Hi, I'm Jane Perlow. I'm from Toscana West. I've been a resident there for 15 years. I'm going to talk today about the future fire department contract. After watching the video of the Town Commission's meeting on September 24th, I felt it was necessary to come forward and address the fire department contract that will be negotiated for the next 10-year contract beginning in 2026. I want to thank Commissioner Peggy Seidman for all the research she has done so far regarding the renewal of the Delray Fire Department contract. This must be negotiated before October 2020 for the next 10-year option. We don't want to have another FDOT referendum disaster at the last minute. The residents of Highland Beach need to be informed of this major commitment now. Our town attorney, Glenn Torsivia, gave a long history of the contract with Delray Fire Department. To go from $886,000 a year service contract in 1990 to a projection of $7 million yearly in 2025-26 is excessive and unconscionable. Our annual tax revenues cannot keep up with this. We only take in $12 million from taxes approximately per year. Inflation of less than 3% does not justify tax increases every year for residents of 5 to 8%. We must demand a forensic audit of expenses allocated to Highland Beach from Delray Beach Fire Department total operating budget. Some questions to ask. How many fires for 2019 in Highland Beach? One that I know of in 4,500 condo. How many emergencies such as heart attacks or accidents? Does it justify our total tax revenue and fees of $15 million to have over 1/2 of our budget allocated to Delray Fire Department services? What other fire departments can offer similar services at a lower cost? Would it be more cost-effective to have a vendor ambulance service, answer medical emergencies, and the vendor to charge the recipient patients for these services and only use the fire department for fire? Could we just use Delray for training and compliance and have our own fire department? Do we need 22 FTEs, full-time equivalents for this? We already lease our own equipment and have our own building. Inform the residents now that even with tax increases from 220 on, we will never be able to afford the future contract with Delray. The projections of $6 to $7 million a yearly only go up to 2025-26, not the full 10 years. In conclusion, the town will go bankrupt. Property values will go down, all because we're probably paying more than our fair share of Delray's fire department expenses. Our small town population should not be the benefactor of the Delray Fire Department and their residents. Bad enough that Gulfstream is also benefiting from our present agreement with Delray. We have enough lead time to investigate the alternatives. If not, the Commission Town Manager, Financial Advisory Board will be liable for malpractice. I also did not appreciate the verbal attacks by Rhoda and Evelyn hurled on Commissioner Peggy. Before attacks are unleashed by commissioners on one another, they should come prepared and have read the supporting documentation before meetings. It was appalling. Remember, the residents of this town can be mobilized to vote this down in a referendum and remove any commissioner or town manager who does not do due diligence. Once informed, the residents will vote no to a renewal of this outrageous contract with Delray Fire Department. Can I have this for the record, please?
Okay, would anyone else like to make a comment? Yes, Dr. Axelrod?
David Axelrod, 3740 South Ocean Boulevard. First, for those who do not know, Mary McKinney is leaving, and as a member, as chairman of the planning board, we'll sorely miss her, and we wish her all the best. We hope, Marshall, that we're going to get somebody as exceptional as Mary to replace her, because that will be a vacant position if it isn't. We need a town planner. That being said, last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, I viewed a meeting in which the town calendar was discussed. It was interesting to note that the major discussion was how to handle the Christmas holiday regarding meetings. One of the commissioners even mentioned Hanukkah and Kwanzaa in the same breath as Christmas, although those are holidays that really don't call for special, things. They don't close places or businesses. That brings me to my point. The demographics in Highland Beach will probably show that there is a fairly good Jewish population. Interestingly enough, this meeting was originally scheduled for last Tuesday, which was the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And when the committee discussed this and changed it, I was amazed at some of the knowledge that some people didn't even know whether Jewish New Year was Yom Kippur or was Rosh Hashanah. I feel that in the Jewish religion, we call those Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur the high holy days. There's 10 days between the two holidays. Those days are not days that have to be celebrated. However, Christmas Eve, you don't have meetings. The day after Christmas, you do not have meetings. In fact, it was interesting that the day after Labor Day, you did not have a meeting. However, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the town obviously did not realize that the second day, and it's understandable because it's the Orthodox celebrate the second day. However, Yom Kippur is celebrated and ends with a breaking of the fast at night. When that occurs, it makes it difficult. These are holidays where people travel, go to services with family, have dinners with family, and the breaking of fast is something that is important as the ending of Yom Kippur. However, families do travel, and I'm speaking personally because there's a meeting of the planning board scheduled for the day after Yom Kippur. I will be in Colorado with my family, my son. Very honestly, I would not have made it back if meeting was Friday. But I think in the future, the calendar should take into effect the religious holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, put it on the agenda, and so that in the future, just like Christmas, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are probably the 2 days that the non-religious even go to synagogue. And these should be taken into effect. They change, so it requires, but that you can Google and find out when they're going to be until 2022. So I'd appreciate it that in the future, as I said, to be honest, I'm being honest in saying, if the meeting had been Friday, had been Tuesday, I wouldn't have made the meeting anyway, but because I'm going to be in Colorado. However, I do feel that in the future, we should take those holidays in effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rosen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Fred Rosen, Braemar Isle, Boca Highland. Last week I came here, and last meeting I passed out a picture of a car that was upside down in our parking garage at Braemar Isle. And I pointed out the quick response of the fire EMTs and police. The fact that this woman's life was saved because of the quick action of these people. Like every single call, a 911 call, these guys are there. I've been listening for months. I'm up here all the time talking about this. I understand that Boca does not want any part of this, that if we were to change to somebody immediately, we'd probably end up paying double. But the point is, we don't have anybody as a backup. And I'm thinking to myself, what are these commissioners in Delray thinking? They're getting slammed at every single meeting. They're getting projected costs where there's no projections of what our property values will be in 20 years. Somebody said count the number of heart attacks. If you're the one having the heart attack, I think you want these people there. And I think we're nowhere near ready, even if we wanted to go into this thing and investigate it thoroughly over the next year and see what options there are. Right now, we don't have an option. And it scares the hell out of me every time somebody gets up there and starts slamming these people. I took it upon myself to call Chief DeJesus, and I left a message to have him call me back because I want to thank him for the good service. And I want to tell him that most of the people that I know in my complex and other people in Boca Highland appreciate their professionalism and good service. And yes, we want to negotiate a fair contract, but I don't think we can get better than we got right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have a comment? John?
I'll hand this out for people who want to read along. I'm actually going to read this one. And I'll publish this tomorrow,
Okay.
edited version,
Thank you.
so that I understand. Thanks. I'm John Ross. I live in Casarina. One quickie, it would be good if the town published a link to ADVA so that people could easily donate. Simple thing to do. Secondly, the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Jewish people are encouraged to make their peace with people they may have upset in the course of the year. I probably upset some people around here. If that's the case, I apologize for your tourists and wish you a prosperous and happy new year. Now we'll start with upsetting some new people. I'm doing the best I can. This is unedited. What I gave you is not the finest work in terms of grammar and spelling. It'll get better by tomorrow morning. The town sent out another email explaining how the water in Highland Beach is safe to drink. The letter is ill-advised, as it both fails to reassure the residents while at the same time succeeds in insulting those residents' intelligence. The residents of Highland Beach are by and large more successful than any of you commissioners. Many are better educated, and those who have come up through the school of hard knocks have overcome barriers that I don't think most of the commissioners can imagine. They reach the heights of business, industry, government, the military, education, the arts, etc. No matter how many times you say in your emails that the water is safe, the residents are going to say, "Show me." Not that they're all from Missouri. You never do. A few weeks ago, an inquisitive resident forwarded a link to the US EPA, to CSHB, that have followed this link and have discovered the following disturbing report about our plant. This particular chart does not squeeze well on a page, but it shows violations for 12 consecutive quarters. 12 consecutive quarters, ending not in 2004, but on 3/31/19, the last quarter reported. It says violation. There was a break of 2 quarters when instead of violation, it said serious violation. These are the facts. You can follow the link anytime you want. Check for yourself. You'd think the town would have told the residents of these violations, explained to us what they are, explained how they would be remediated. That's what they would have done if they didn't think we were dumb. Instead, they either didn't know about the EPA data, who's dumb now, or did not know, or did know but chose not to share. The EPA also shows a sample test reading for lead in excess of standards. However, that reading was taken at a residence, not at the plant, and is presented as the highest reading of all samples taken. Could be a bad pipe in the building. It did come from somewhere other than the plant. There's an anomalous fact on the EPA site explained. You can do the same with the violations listed. By the way, I hope the town informed the resident in that particular house that they had a serious lead problem, because once you've collected it, you should definitely inform people of problems with their water so they can do something about it. When CSHB talks about commissioners not respecting us, this is what we're talking about. Please alarm us. Please alarm us. Scare the hell out of us if you don't know what's going on. If you don't know what's getting on. Please don't hide anything. Don't cover anything up. We'll decide what to drink. We're smart enough to figure out what to drink. Just show us the facts and we'll make up our own minds. In the town's email, town manager Marshall Labadie, mean no offense. Please. Relies on an email from Stephen J. Garcia, the Palm Beach County Office of Florida Department of Health, who checked our file, and that states, according to the town's reports as sent to the Department of Health, the water's fine. Well, we have a few questions. Why does the EPA say we're in violation?
Thank you, John. We have to move on with the meeting.
I'll send it out tomorrow, and if anyone, well, I have only but one copy left, so we'll go with that, but it's got a great punchline.
Okay. We'll move on to number 8, boards and committees and announcements. Board vacancies and interviews. Board of Adjustment and Appeals Board, 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending January 2nd, 2020. This vacancy is due to the recent resignation of Don Gill. Staff emailed the commissioners on 10/1 about this resignation. Code Enforcement Board, 3 vacancies, 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending July 1, 2021, 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending August 1, 2021, and 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending May 28, 2022. Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board, 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2021. Upcoming meetings and events, we have a planning board meeting October 10th, 2019, 9:30 a.m. Town Hall closed October 14, 2019, observance of Columbus Day. Financial Advisory Board quarterly meeting October 24, 2019, 9:30 a.m. Town Commission regular meeting October 15, 2019, 1:30 p.m. Do we have any board action reports? No. And we go on to ordinances and resolutions. Resolution number 19-027R, request for special exception approval for 3833 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard. A resolution of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, approving a special exception for properties located at 3833 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard, dock lot, to allow for an accessory use to be utilized at 3906 South Ocean Boulevard, 500 feet from the principal use located at 3833 South Ocean Boulevard, and providing for an effective date. I refer this item to Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We are all familiar. We've been discussing this project for some time. That did go to the Planning Commission. Mary's here to answer any specific questions you may have. They approved the special exception. They did predicate a few conditions of that approval, which will be the next agenda item, which is the release from the existing unity of title and then approving the new unity of title that would take the property to be consistent with the changes to the ordinance that we adopted at our last meeting that are in effect. So I could answer any questions, but again, this is the Rothberg Unity of Title project that we've been talking about for a while. So 1 property is owned on the ocean front. Not immediately across or adjacent is the second lot, but it's within the permitted distance that we approved in the ordinance for an accessory use. The accessory use is is predicated on a special exception being granted by the commission after a recommendation from the planning board, that those steps have happened. Again, we have those conditions, and if the special exception is approved, we go into the unity of title, which is our next agenda item, where we would break it and then immediately execute a new unity of title. I could answer any questions, and again, Mary McKinney's here with any specific questions you might have.
Okay, Commissioner David, we'll start with you.
No, I don't really have any questions. I think that both of these resolutions are appropriate, and we should just get on with it.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
Yes, ma'am. We've read this several times, and I know Marshall's put a lot of time into correcting this matter. I do have a question. The agenda was released Friday, and then this item on the agenda, these items were resent on the agenda. I could not for the life of me find a change from one to the other. Was there anything really relevant to this? I really couldn't find a
There were no
Friday to
cha-
Monday change.
There were no changes. It was just some pages were missing, and it was just a few pages. They came in double-sided, but you probably missed
Got it.
just a few pages.
Very
But there
good.
were no changes.
Okay, no changes to the docs themselves.
Correct.
Very good. Otherwise, I'm happy to move on and have everyone live a happy life on their unified lots. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Thank you, Mayor. Applicant's gotten the special exception approval from the planning board, which did a great job on that, by the way, and this meets all of our new codes now, so I think we should approve it.
Yes, we have discussed this numerous times, but at this time, I will ask if there are any public comments on this issue. Mr. Goldenberg, please state your name and address.
I think it's a simple thing.
Wait, come to the,
Here we go again. Eric Goldenberg, 3912 Ocean, Regency. I thought it mentions 500 feet. I thought we changed that to 1,000 feet.
We did.
On here, it says 500. On,
What the 500 feet is, right, is that's for his dock.
oh,
The
he's
distance
within,
between his-
okay, but it is 1,000 feet that we changed the ordinance to.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to do.
thank you very much for the clarification. Okay, any further comments on this? No? Seeing none, and we'll see how the discussion goes. Is there a motion from the commission to adopt this resolution, 19027R?
I move that we adopt this resolution, obviously pending the resolution, the adoption of the next resolution.
Second.
Okay.
The town
Commissioner
clerk.
David?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
Yes.
Mayor Zellniker?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Resolution number B, resolution number 19-028R, release of unity of title for 3921 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard. Approval of unity of title for 3833 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard. A resolution of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, approving a release of unity of title for properties located at 3921 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard, and approving a unity of title for properties located at 3833 and 3906 South Ocean Boulevard, authorizing the mayor to execute the documents and providing for an effective date. I refer this to Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As we were just discussing, so this is a simultaneous step. We're going to break the existing unity of title because the intercoastal piece is tied to a different oceanfront property. So we break that unity and then relink the new oceanfront property to the intercoastal.
Then commission discussion, Commissioner David?
No, I think we should just get on with it.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman? Vice Mayor?
I think we should approve it.
Okay. At this time, before we have a vote, we will have public comments from anybody. Okay, and then the roll call vote, please.
We need a motion.
We need a motion.
So I'll make a motion to pass resolution number 19-028R.
Second.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
Yes.
And Mayor Zellniker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
You're taking everybody out for a boat ride, remember that. Okay. Okay. Okay, I believe we're up to number C, is that correct, Another?
That is correct.
Okay, resolution number 19-029R, Advisory Boards and Committees Appointment Process Policy. A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, adopting an advisory boards and committees appointment process policy and providing an effective date. I refer this to our town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As we recall, we worked on this May, June, July timeframe, and as part of that, after we approved a final form, we discussed that approving it as a policy via resolution would be our next step. Now, that is before you. There are inherent safeguards within the policy, so if we choose to go in a slightly different direction, you are afforded that latitude. There are certain elements to commissions, to advisory boards and commissions that are stipulated within town ordinance. Those town ordinances are referenced and followed in this process. Again, it just kind of clarifies the process that we agreed to moving forward to try to fill these vacancies. And we've discussed it at great length, and it's before the resolution to approve this is before you.
Okay. Okay, I refer this to our commission. Commissioner David?
I think that this pretty well sets it out. I like the idea that if we need applications at a time not in January or June, that we can in fact call for additional applications. And it's good to have a form and something consistent to follow. So I approve this.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bobby, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of what's in here has been discussed. May not be the final version. We may have to edit it a little bit down the road. The only thing I thought that was a little liberal, but I don't recommend any changes, is the absences are still at 3 or more consecutive regular meetings. And Commissioner Gasa-Seidman has pointed out more than once that attendance is very important. I would say leave it as is. No one seems like it's abusing it, but we might have to change that down the road, but everything else looked fine.
Okay, Commissioner Seidman?
Yes, thank you. I just wondered if this would grandfather in any current board members, if they wouldn't fall under these regulations.
I would think so, but some of the time and attendance is actually written into our
Right, that
ordinance.
is, I'm aware of that.
Holds true for all sitting advisory board
Right. members.
The other pieces in here, I guess they would be grandfathers. We're not going to have them all reapply to go through this process. But as we move forward, it does talk about renewals in their current position. So I would say, I guess, yes, if you will, that if they're a sitting advisory board member currently, they don't have to reapply and go through a new vetting process. We'll just continue on, and as we move forward, we would follow these policies and this procedure and policy. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And item 3D, I wondered if we state that they cannot hold an elected office. However, what about an appointed board office in another municipality? Would that be a conflict? What someone's a code enforcement board here in Highland Beach and a code enforcement board in Long Island? I mean, does that really matter? There are people on our boards who split their time 6 months a year.
They're not supposed to. We're supposed to be full-time residents here.
Well, I'm just raising an issue that could arise while we're looking at this overall. When we say elected, but what about appointed at another municipality? Does that matter?
They have to be here full-time in order to be on the advisory board. Would that be relevant? I don't know.
I don't know, I'm just throwing the
Yeah,
question
okay.
out.
I don't know the answer. The attorney should
Attorney
answer that.
Persivia?
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't serve on 2 code enforcement boards in Florida because that'd be considered dual office holding. I've never looked into someone serving on a different board in a different state. So
Just wondered.
if the commission wants us to research that, we will. I don't know whether it's hypothetical or
Hypothetical, but I do know some members aren't in town for months at a time. I'm just throwing it out. If we need people and they're up north, what do we do?
I would guess that if that, in your scenario, the up north community would be the one that they would have to be possibly more concerned unless we find it as a conflict, they have to disclose this information. But to serve here, you have to be a resident domiciled here in Highland Beach and be a registered voter. That's in this policy, so you couldn't potentially live, 7 months up north and then come down here and serve. You'd have to kind of declare that here and prove that in part of the vetting process. If a northern community allows something more lenient standard potentially, then I don't know where that would be unless we found it as a conflict in their commitment here, that if, we've talked about this too, if they're, if they, for the summer, go up to a northern community and then that don't come back down here for our meetings, then that's something we'd have to consider during the interview process. Does it pose a problem for them to do both and things of that
Okay,
nature?
I'm just bringing this up because I was contacted by a board member earlier this summer stating that there are people who do split their time pretty equally, and what do they do if we enact this mandatory showing up for meeting rule? Therefore, are they going to be capable or able to serve? So maybe we could just see how it goes, and if it arises, talk about it then. I'm just bringing it up as a possibility.
As I understand it, there is already a attendance regulation in place. Plus, anyone who is appointed to an advisory board serves at the pleasure of the commission. So if we find somebody isn't fulfilling what we think are their duties, we can just remove them. So it shouldn't be a major issue.
Vice Mayor, did you have a comment? Nope. No, okay. The only comment I had was, if you're a full-time Florida resident and you're not a resident up north or wherever it is that you live, usually they couldn't be on the board because they're not residents there, unless people are not telling the truth and they're taking,
Just throwing it out as a possibility, and I was aware of that in one phone call of that. So we can move
that's
on,
good.
see how it goes, and if the situation arises, we could bring it
And
back
deal
up.
with it,
That's
yeah.
fine. Thank you so much.
But you can only be a resident, and correct me, Glenn? We can only be a resident in one state.
You're only supposed to be a resident in one state.
Yeah, so they wouldn't be allowed to do something somewhere else, but, okay. At this time, public comments are now open. Yes? State your name, please, and your address.
David Axelrod, Toscana. The only suggestion I would make, and we've had this happen in the planning board, if somebody is in, right now, as your thing says, it says in absence or present, that's it. If somebody is in the hospital, there should be a place for excused absences. We did call for one situation on the planning board where I had the minutes amended because somebody had been in the hospital. If somebody is sick or has medical reasons, somebody died in the family and has a legitimate excused absence, that should be in this resolution, that there's the word excused absence. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hillman?
Doug Hillman, Dalton Place. To begin with, I like very much what we're laying out here. So don't take this in a negative sense. Our goal, though, is to get the best possible minds on these boards. And I'm not sure if we allow somebody to call in to a board meeting. I know you can't do that on a commission meeting unless it's an illness. But do we know, can somebody call in for a board meeting?
Generally, the sunshine law would allow someone to call in as long as, one, there's a quorum physically present, two, that there's some emergent circumstance, such as an illness, and then third, what the policy of the body is. So if the town commission adopts a policy that says no call-ins, then it's no call-ins. If the town commission adopts a policy that you can call in those circumstances, because that's the minimum. You have to at least have a quorum physically present, and there's got to be some, exigent emergency type circumstance, exigent, not emergency so much, because you could be in the hospital for a month, for example, then you can call in. But the town could always be more restrictive than that.
Okay, I was thinking about being more lenient.
Or more, well, like, they can't be more lenient than a physically present quorum, and that there's got to be some exigent circumstance why you're not there. That you would.
Excuse me, the reason I was going in that direction was, again, we want to get the best people, the best minds. And in many cases for board meetings, not commission meetings, but board meetings, we have people that are still actively involved in the business world, and they travel. I know I have some travel requirements at times. And if we can be more lenient and have them participate but not be physically there, we might be able to attract more people to our commission, to our boards. If we can do such a thing, then we can get better people at the boards, we can attract better minds, we might get some people that are in the northern part of town, which is what we've been trying to do also, and round these boards out, because the boards are critically important to the town's future. And it was just a thought. So if we can think about that down the road, still enact these policies that we're talking about here, it would give us an opportunity to possibly get some, a broader base on the boards and have the boards be more active and more involved in the running of the town. Just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, just to let you know on that, if you wanted to do that, we could research that, because what that opinion is really based on, I mean, is an opinion from the Attorney General from about 20 years ago. And clearly, the physically present part, I don't think that's going to move. Technology has changed, and it's interesting that he brought this up, because we were just discussing this 2 or 3 days ago as to, with the new technology, what would the Attorney General's opinion be today on something like this? So that's a good question, timely question.
You know, times have changed, obviously.
Exactly.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's important that we get something on the books. We can always, change things as we go. We've even discussed in the town charter what happens when commissioners or mayor gets sick. Okay, all right. But all of this does have to be addressed, because if you really care about your town, we have somebody who just recently became very ill, Don Gill, and he's worked for the town for many, many years. I mean, at least 8 to 10 years that I know him. And he's participated, and he became ill, and he had to go to New Jersey to be with his family, and he sent in his resignation. And there comes a point in someone's life, it depends how sick you are and whatever, that, that if you feel that you really can't participate the way you should, that it really, honestly, I feel that person should resign. But each case is different, so maybe there has to be a flexibility there. John? Mm-hmm.
John Ross, Casarina. All right, you got the flu. We passed a resolution. Go to the meeting. That's smart. Infect everyone else. No. We're not talking to somebody who is on their deathbed, okay? We're really not. We're talking about people who are ill, all right? The last thing you want is to bring them to town hall, okay? Let them call in, put in the caveat that there has to be a quorum. It's a 2-second change in a thing, in a simple amendment. But it's the right thing to do for the health and safety of everybody who works here and toils away on the committees. It's also the right thing to do because over the last 40 years, we no longer need coconuts connected with pieces of bamboo to make a phone call. We really have ways of doing it, okay? It's automatic in most of the jurisdiction, many of the jurisdictions around here. And it's time you added it. It's just the right thing to do for everybody's benefit.
Well, you do have a certain amount of absences also. But you know what? When you have the flu, obviously you're not going to come. We don't want you. But it's common sense. A lot of this is common sense. All right. But we do have to, any other comments? We do have to move on. Commissioner David, any other comments?
Yes, I do. I think we should absolutely add, my brain is just shut down.
About the flu.
Yeah, well, no, with the flu, You're talking 3 absences in a row. Most of these committees meet once a month at the most. So that means you're not having the flu for 3 months. So while I understand and I agree with you, I don't think it's going to come up. But I do think that we should allow people who are residents here but aren't necessarily here to call in. And as long as we have a physical quorum. Because you want to have as many people involved in the discussion of whatever is being presented as you can. There's a reason why these boards have certain numbers of members. So if we can hear from them, I mean, you know, it's all of the different ways that you can call in and kind of be there without being there, we should take that into account.
Commissioner Seidman? Do you have any comment?
I agree.
Okay.
But,
Vice
I mean,
Mayor?
I've raised this before with regard to the commission. I do know that there have been situations in Delray, and 2 people brought this up at the league meetings. They do allow calls in, but not on a regular basis, on perhaps an exceptional basis. So I'm fine with that. We can leave this as is, or we can alter that one reference. I'm fine either way. Just use common sense is all.
Common sense.
Yep.
I agree.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to make a subsequent motion after this to have the town attorney look into what Mr. Hillman recommended, but I'll ask town attorney, are we better off passing this as is and then making that motion so you can look at it and research it, or
Oh,
do
yeah,
you think
sir.
that should be a component of this?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hold this up. I'd suggest you, if you're comfortable with this, pass this, and then we could look at that and get back next month. I don't think that's a lot of research, frankly. It's just looking and see if there's any updated Attorney General opinions.
So if we pass this, I'm happy to make that motion, or even if we don't.
Okay. Okay, you made the motion?
Well, I think we should vote on this first and then move on to the subsequent
Go ahead.
motion.
Go ahead.
Well, you want two different votes? Yeah.
So I'll make a
Make a
motion
motion.
to pass this resolution. What's the number of it? Apologies. 19-029. So I'll make a motion to pass resolution 19-029R as written.
I second that. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett Seidman?
Yes.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
And Mayor Zelniker?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor, may I make my subsequent motion?
Certainly.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to have the town attorney research Mr. Hillman's suggestion for board members to be able to call in if there's legitimate circumstance.
Or FaceTime. Use the word FaceTime.
I second that also.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett Seidman?
Yes.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
And Mayor Zelniker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's fine. Okay, we're up to number 10, consent agenda. Approval to purchase one 2020 Ford Police Hybrid utility vehicle from Bartow Ford in the amount of $39,453 for the police department. I refer this item to the town manager. It is on a consent agenda. We have approved this.
You approved it in the budget to
Yes.
acquire this vehicle. It's within the budget amount that has been done. The cost is less than the sheriff contract. And Chief's here to answer any questions. But the interesting part is we are moving to the hybrid platform, which will lower emissions and gas use. So it's a good way to go with the level of running time, idle time.
Commissioner David, any comment?
No, I think we discussed it. It looks like we're getting the best price, and it's already in the budget, so let's just pass this, let them buy it.
Okay, Commissioner Seidman?
Yes, I've noticed on the Florida Newswire, several municipalities have also purchased hybrid vehicles, some in 2 and 3. And so we're keeping up with the times, hopefully, and thank you, Chief, for looking into this.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bobby?
No comments besides. I think we should approve it.
Okay, and I've been working on this for a long time, 6 years. And I'm very happy that we've gone to a hybrid car. It's very important for our environment. At this time, public comments are now open. John?
Is this 2019 or 2020 budget?
this current budget that was approved and goes into effect 2 days ago, Monday.
So that's the 2020 budget? Yep. And we're buying it instead of leasing it?
Correct.
Have you done a cost effectiveness analysis of that?
Sure if Chief did one in particular, but we've looked at leases in the past, or that model has been looked at it for the cost. Basically, you take full ownership cost, because basically the book value at the end, and I'm not going to speak to this specific vehicle. I looked at this in the last community I worked, where we were purchasing a fleet. We found that leases really, especially for police vehicles, don't really have a benefit as far as the cost structure because of the use and the customization that goes to it. If we were buying a bunch of Focuses, let's say, for something, I would probably say a lease. We could take a look at it because we're taking a very stock basic car. When we buy these, we send them out once we get them, and they're out for, Chief, 2-3 months, getting customized and things of that nature. So that kind of changes the lease perspective a little bit. And based on the miles we put on it. So basically, you just take your ownership and pay it in the same amount rather than one. So you're going to add finance to it versus just a direct purchase. But again, we didn't look at it specifically for this vehicle.
Town Manager, can I add to that for
Sure.
a second? So a lease has 3 components to it. It has a money factor, which is an interest rate, it has a depreciation between where you buy the car and the residual value. And the third component is, I'll think about it in a second.
Mileage.
What's that? No, that's within the depreciation.
Yeah.
But this is a highly customized vehicle, and we go over almost it is actually, because we asked them to do like all these different little harnesses and stuff for power to put in. And the depreciation becomes pretty massive, particularly with the miles we put on it. And then we also lose the optionality at the end if we want to do, as you've said in the past, keep cars for 5 years instead of 4 years or 3 years.
Right,
So
or
it's a slightly different analysis than it would be for a
do
normal
what
car.
Boca did with the Crown Vic next to the Jewish school on Spanish River, which is permanently park it.
Oh, there's an officer in
as
there.
a decoy. This is a purpose-built vehicle as opposed to previous Ford vehicles that were turned into police vehicles. This is purposely built for police departments. It's a great price. Maybe there's a residual value or parking value to it, but consistently testing the difference between purchase and lease is not a dumb thing to do. It's a 5-minute phone call for one of the staff in town.
The third component is taxes. Sorry, I forgot about the taxes.
Taxes?
Yeah, I
We
think
pay
that's-
taxes?
That's built into the lease as well.
Well, it wouldn't be for
No, well, a lease
tax-exempt
payment, I'm saying. A lease
organizations.
payment is those
Yeah,
3
but
components.
it couldn't be for this, I assume that Highland Beach is tax exempt.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no, John Bowden, please.
John Bowden, 3407 South Ocean, and it's only because I don't know, but obviously we got an old one we're getting rid of. How do we do the accounting on the trade-in quotation marks?
What? We could hardly hear you.
This is in addition to the existing fleet, and there's no car being turned back? Or
There
being
is. There's
sold,
one. We'll whatever auction it, or we'll consider what we did last year with it, which was is that because with the building department, we needed an extra vehicle, so we took that and for, I don't know, maybe $1,000, we stripped it and converted it and are driving it. So we're just having a hard time keeping the hubcaps on it. So if you see why the code car has 2 hubcaps on one side and they fall off on the other, we're still trying to get the right
My
mounting
question
on
just
that.
relates into the numbers, because it doesn't say anything about this is the price and this is the other side, so we're just asking what the value differential would come out to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments before we continue? Okay. If there's no more comments and the commissioners don't have anything more to say on this topic, is there a motion to adopt consent agenda item 10A?
I so move.
I need a second.
Second.
Town clerk?
Okay, Commissioner David?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Mayor Zellniker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Number 11, unfinished business, we have none. That's good. New business. Item number 12, advisory boards and committees interviews and consideration to nominate 2 members to serve on the Financial Advisory Board for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2020, and for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2021. When a motion is made, we need to have the date that you want the person to fill. The board applicants, Natasha Moore, subdivision is in Bell Lido, and John Stump, Ambassadors North Condominium. We're happy to have someone from the north applying. Okay, Natasha Moore, I see you come up first. Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and tell us why are you interested in serving on the Financial Advisory Board.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natasha Moore. I live at 4400 Tranquility Drive in Bell Lido. I'm interested in participating. I've never really done anything like this before, and I recently changed careers, so now I have the flexibility to attend meetings and all that kind of stuff. So I think the one item that came up recently, the Ocean Walk project, kind of made me realize that I really should be more involved in what's going on in the town and all that kind of stuff. So that's really a big reason why I'm here.
Okay, Commissioner David, do you have any questions?
Just one, really. It's a lovely resume, but what is it exactly that you do?
I am a credentialed actuary. I think that's what you're
Okay,
asking
but what
me.
are you, actuarial comes up with the numbers. What are you doing it for? Is it for an insurance policy, or I don't...
So in my currently I'm a realtor, but what she's asking about is my previous career. I am a credentialed actuary. I used to work for NCCI, and what we did was we collected workers' comp information from insurance companies. So I actually worked for a data company, and for 37 states, we produced insurance rates that were used as benchmarks that insurance companies could look at and make pricing decisions. And so what we did was we made it a more competitive environment so that small companies that didn't have access to that kind of data could use that data and price their workers' comp exposure appropriately. So it was really a company that was put out there to encourage competition because it set out these benchmark rates. And so that's what I did. I helped evaluate. We were assigned various states, and in my most recent role, which is why I thought this advisory board was such a good fit for me, was workers' comp is based on the laws and the statutes. And so if you broke an arm, you got a certain benefit. You also got medical benefits. And so as I looked at what the purpose of the Financial Advisory Board was, which is to look at proposed legislation and try to evaluate the financial impact for the city, that's exactly what I did when there were proposed changes to workers' comp laws, is I would look at the data and see what kind of impact it would have on the workers' comp rates for insurance companies. So I think it fits pretty well with what we're trying to do on this board. So I'm happy to serve.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bobby, please. Any questions?
Sure. Hi, Natasha. It's good to
Hello.
see you.
Good to see you.
I think you'd be a phenomenal addition to this board. I used to be the chair of this board, and I at times wished we had an actuary. So I thank you very much for your application.
Oh, I'm happy to
Okay.
serve.
Commissioner Seidman?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Nice to see you. And I do wonder, in your past experience, you said you changed jobs recently. I just wondered what you changed from and to specifically.
So my previous career, I was 23 years at NCCI as an actuary. I'm a credentialed actuary, which means I passed a bunch of grueling exams. And so now I'm a realtor. So my husband and I, we started a real estate brokerage. And so now I'm a full-time realtor. And I think that also kind of helps too. With this role as well. And the reason for that was I just really wanted to start my own business. I was in the corporate world for a long time and just had a desire to start my own business. So that's kind of the reason for the
Okay,
change. And I
great.
did that I switched in 2016.
And regarding the referendum and the Ocean Walk, when you said that inspired you to apply, what exactly inspired you in that regard? And do you have like opinions or direction or
I just was not very
Ideas?
informed about it until it went to vote. And it just made me realize I really need to be much more informed in what's going on in the town that I live in. And I just felt like I really just need to be responsible myself, you know, in getting involved. So it was really just, it enlightened me at how ignorant I was of what was going on in the place that I live, because I was just so busy doing my own, you know, life. And so I just thought this is a really good time. I saw that the opening was there and it was a good fit for me. And I just figured, you know, really the time is right.
Okay, thank you. And I think you have a daughter, maybe 8 or 10 years old?
I have 3 kids, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and almost 11. You'll see them bouncing a basketball outside. They're avid basketball players. And yeah, you'll see them at the bus stop in the mornings and in the evenings and stuff. So yeah, it's nice to see, you know, I've got my kids and there are more kids, I think, you know, coming into the neighborhood.
Because one of them came up to me on a walk one day and said, my mom's a realtor, and my dad, do you want to sell your house? So I think that was your kid.
I'm sorry.
No, she was
I
adorable.
did not put her up to that, I
No,
swear.
we chatted her up for a while. So,
Maybe
so
that was when I switched careers and she was trying to help me
but
out.
It was a hoot, no worries. And I certainly think you're very well qualified, and thank you for throwing your hat in.
Sure.
Okay, I'll just quickly say, we're very happy to have younger people involved in the town. It's the future of the town is in your hands. So I'm very happy that you applied. I would like to know, though, on your resume, you didn't mention any volunteer work. Are you active in anything? Are you on any boards with any volunteer organizations?
This is really my first time doing this. I've done some work with the schools. As my kids, especially the elementary school, I didn't think it was relevant, which is why I didn't put it on my resume.
But it is, because when you're dealing with schools, you're dealing with the public, and you're
I
dealing...
mean, it really
yeah.
just room mom and, you know, parties for schools and things like that.
But you were active on the PTA or the board? Or...
I'm not a part of a PTA.
No,
I've
okay.
been like a room mom, things like that, but.
That's okay.
No
How
other-
about...
Maybe this is the start
Are you a
of my-
coach for any of your teams?
I was a soccer coach, but I'm really not athletic at all, so
No,
it
but that
was a
doesn't...
one-time thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just curious, because
Yeah.
usually, you know, people like yourself, they, you know, involved in a lot of things, which is good.
Right.
I think that's fine. Okay, and will any other questions from the... Okay, no? Okay, then we're going to have, if you would sit down, please, and we're going to interview John Stump. There are 2 openings.
Well, if I'm happy to be approved by this board, I was very excited to know I might be a party litigant if we don't do the correct thing for one particular individual. That didn't really excite me too much to be spending my time for the benefit of this community and be threatened with litigation before I'm even on the board. But in any event, let's pass over that. I was active in my community in Lansing, Michigan, for various endeavors, primarily with the Jaycees, and eventually I became the legal counsel for the Michigan Jaycees. And the Jaycees are a very active organization in every community. And I was always active in my church and various activities associated with that. Quite frankly, that's my background. I practiced law for 40 years. I think that gives me a very comprehensive approach to people's problems, whether it's business or government. And if you have any questions of me, I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Thank you. Commissioner David?
Yes, why did you apply for this particular board as opposed to another one?
Well, I've always been involved in finance, with estate planning, with business groups. I've been involved in that all the time. And from what I hear, I'm not saying it's true yet, because I don't have all the facts. But from what I see and hear, there is a potential large economic problem with this board, with this community. I thought I could make a contribution. It would be a challenge. I would like it. That's why I applied.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gossett-Sagman, please.
Yes, hello, Mr. Stump. You said you had an outstanding background law and estate planning supervision in your recommendation from the Vice Chair, Mr. Stern, and I just wondered, could you elaborate a little bit on the background law estate planning? Just wondered exactly what was.
In estate planning, a very simple one is drafting a simple will. Then you progress to a trust with the various tax consequences in having a complicated estate trust. And this is what I mean by that I did that, because that's the basic approach that every lawyer takes in drafting an estate plan.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Nothing else right now. Thank you so much.
Okay, Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, John. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Only question I have for you is, in terms of getting up to speed, there's a lot of financial background on the town that if you're put on this board, you'll be handed over. Are you willing to put the time, or do you have the time to go through the investment policy statement, to go through the monthly reports, all of that? Because there's a fair amount of math and finance that goes with it.
Excuse me. I think I can dedicate enough time to meet my responsibility because I've sat on some meetings here, and it's no secret that there is concern in the community about the future of the board. And I think to wrestle with these problems is going to take a while, and then to come up with a solution. Certainly, you've got to dissect the information, understand what the issues are, and then attempt to apply the right suggestions and credence to solving those issues. And I think I have sufficient time, or I would not have applied. It's that simple.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we are happy to have people from different areas of the town, and we appreciate that you're applying. And you seem to have a very good background. The comment from your chairperson at this moment, he had made a comment that maybe you would be better suited for the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel that you're qualified with trusts, and you're certainly in the right town if you want to do that on the side.
Thank you.
So we appreciate very much that you're applying for this position.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. Okay. At this time, we will open up to public comments. If anyone has any comments they'd like to say about our two candidates, speak now. Yes, John?
You guys got lucky this time. You have two great candidates who will help move this board forward. We have a lot of challenges next year, systemic challenges to our ongoing budget, and these are the kind of people who will be of great benefit in working through that. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Now, at this time, do we have any further comments amongst the commissioners? Anyone like to say anything? No? Okay.
If you move forward with appointments, if you could do each one individually, that would be great.
We will.
Okay.
So I need a motion, and for which unexpired term for the person, Natasha Moore. So I need a motion. We'll do her first because she spoke first. Natasha Moore, we need a motion with the term that you would like her to have.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to appoint Natasha Moore for the term ending 2021, which is the longer term.
I second the motion and ask that she bring her daughter sometimes. Thank you.
We'll
Okay.
have cookies at the meetings. Okay.
Okay, we have a roll call vote.
You want to repeat the motion, please?
Yes, Vice Mayor Bobby made a motion to appoint Natasha Moore for the unexpired term ending April 30th, 2021. And Commissioner Gossick-Simon seconded that motion.
Okay.
Okay, we have a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossick-Simon?
Yes.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
And Mayor Zelniker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have John Stump. We need a motion for John Stump.
I make the motion to appoint Mr. Stump to the board. It's important to have people from geographical designations throughout town. Thank you.
For the term ending?
For the other term ending, hold it.
2020.
Thank you. Thank you.
April
Vice Mayor.
30th.
Yes, sir. Ending 2020. Thank you.
We need a second?
I'll second it.
Roll
Okay.
call?
Commissioner Gossick-Simon?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
Commissioner David?
Yes.
And Mayor Zelniker?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. We're very happy to have both of you. And we have a lot of work. Okay. Discussion, all right, the next item, B, discussion on amending the agreement with Highlands Beach Real Estate Holdings, Inc. regarding Milani and Milani Holdings LTD. I refer this item to the town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we've been communicating, I've been communicating with the commission. Ms. Milani has expressed an interest to extend the settlement agreement for an additional 20 years. Again, for everybody in the crowd, if you didn't get a chance to look at this, is for the non-park parcel, because we commonly use Milani for the park and then Milani the non-park. This is the non-park parcel. You have that in your packet where you have the oceanfront and the non-oceanfront parcels and what densities in the settlement that was put in place in 1995. That initial 30-year term comes to an end in 2025, at which point by then she has to exercise her rights or not exercise her rights under that. She has asked for an additional 20 years. I see her here today, and she could answer anything specific you may have as it relates to this. I can answer any questions.
Okay, Mrs. Milani, would you like to come to the platform? And just state your name and your address, please.
My name is Lucia Milani at 4612 South Ocean Boulevard.
Okay, thank you for being here today. Commissioner David, I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't have any questions, but I'm not sure we can do this because it would smack of spot zoning, where she would get permission to do something that other people don't. The original settlement was part of a litigation and it was approved by the court. So the court said, yes, you can spot zone for these parcels. This would essentially be a new contract. And I don't believe we can do it legally.
Okay, but let's get all the comments. Sorry, Vice Mayor Bobby.
Hi, thank you. I have some comments for Mrs. Milani, or questions for Mrs. Milani, and also possibly the town attorney and town manager. So as I understand it, the current agreement that's in place has a lot of exemptions from our current building codes, exemptions in height, exemptions in setbacks, exemptions in density. Are there other exemptions? Does anyone know what the exemptions are versus our current building code?
I don't know if there's so much the building code per se, outside of potentially waiving impact fees, which would be waived. This is more of a zoning related for setbacks, the density, the height. Those basically were the provisions provided because, again, I wasn't here through all of this, but basically we changed the zoning district, and as part of that, the court did say that these densities and permissions and permitted uses would be granted for these two parcels. And again, if we were to apply our current zoning district, a lot of these would not be compliant based on setbacks, density, building height, but all of those were granted in the settlement.
But were these, did these match the building code or the zoning code at that time?
Before we changed it, it probably was close.
Got it. Okay, so we were is that what you understand, Mrs. Malani?
To me, what we settled on was on the zoning that I would have been allowed to build at the time. That is a simple, was a very simple agreed settlement between the town and myself. It's the zoning that I would have been permitted at the time, and was granted a 30 years life to that agreement. I still have another 5 years to go. All I'm saying is if you grant me the additional 20 years, then I have the option to build any time between 2025 and an additional 20 years. This was never considered the spot zoning. As a matter of fact, we were substantially reduced. I wasn't granted anything special than anybody else at the time. So it was not a spot zoning as maybe is misunderstood.
No, it's not that it was spot zoning then. It would be spot zoning now because other people wouldn't have those same specifications. They would have more stringent specifications now. That's what I'm saying. Yes, for then it was fine, but for now it's not really.
I don't agree, but
My next question is, there's apparently 3 properties. Is it 9W, 10W, and 10E? Are there 3, is it 1 property or 3 properties?
no, there is.
Because there's different zonings
Yeah, I
and
think
everything.
one's the oceanfront parcel. The
Correct.
other is where you see the tennis courts over by the Boca Highlands area. It's the
Yeah.
parcel that surrounds that.
Got it. Understood. Got it.
Those are 2 separate lots on the west side, and the east side is 1 lot.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why it's 3 separate parcels.
Got it. And I know it's a 30-year agreement, and there's still 5 years left. It goes till April 2025, right?
Correct, yes.
Is there a strong reason why you're looking to address extending it now?
Well, the reason is really more personal. You know, I'm very attached to my old house. My family was raised there. We've been around here 45 years. I've seen a lot of changes. I'm attached to the property, and there is more a sentimental value. But nothing stops me from building, you know, within the time that I currently have, which is within 2025. If the commission, I'm asking the commission to, if you extend the time, you will enjoy, and the community will enjoy seeing the property as is today. And if not, then if you don't grant me that, then I will be forced to just pull down the house, build on the east side and build on the west side according to my agreement with the town. I will not let that lapse. I won't. So it's a choice you have to either, you know, deny me or extend the life of the agreement.
But as far as I understand, you could do that at any day anyway, whether we extend it or we don't extend it, right?
I can do it up until 2025.
Right, exactly.
If you don't extend it.
Understood. And I guess that kind of brings me into my next question. In negotiations, usually there's a I give A and you give B. And this, it seems like I give A, and I'm not sure what the town or the residents are getting back from it. So is your comment that if we extend this, you'll lock it out for a certain number of years or something where you wouldn't build on it? What does the residents in the town get for extending this?
The benefit of seeing the property the way it is today.
But they don't get that because that's not locked in. We could give you a 30-year, or 40 or 50-year exemption. You could still build tomorrow. The town doesn't get that.
No, you have an agreement. I'm not going to let it lapse. If you don't extend it to me, it's not okay. I would prefer, obviously, that is why I'm here. But if you don't, I will not let it lapse. I will just go ahead and build within the time that the life of this agreement. Simple as that. The benefit is, if you extend it, that you have the option. But I cannot lock myself in saying, I'm not going to build for the until 2035 or 2045. I'm not going to do that.
Right, understood. I've always learned in life, and certainly I always say in the markets, it's okay to buy options for free, but you never sell options for free. And this is one of those cases where the town and the residents would be selling an option for free. Here, take an option for another 20 years and we'll get nothing for it. So representing the residents, it's difficult to say, hey, we're going to sell an option for free. And I'm trying to figure out what the residents or the town's getting out of it.
And
that's what I'm missing.
Yes, and I understand your point. However, I don't see the downside to this. What I'm not asking for anything that would be detrimental to the municipality. It wouldn't be.
Right, well, I guess one of the things I'd like to hear before deciding anything on this, for sure, I'd like to hear from the residents around that area, because you do have different zonings. Granted, they are the zonings from 30 years ago, as you were saying, but they're very different zonings and very different densities and very different heights than there are now. And that does impact the residents around that area, and that's one of the areas of the most amount of residents in Highland Beach. Like Braemar Isle is one of the biggest groups of residents. So I think it's important to get those kind of people's opinions. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that along the lines of selling an option for free, I know in 5 years from now, I think it's January 2025 is when we have the whole Milani Park come up again. And the town, your family, and the county is going to be in one giant, what I call negotiation festival, right? And it would be selling an option for free, for sure, to give you a 20-year extension now with nothing in exchange, and then in 5 years, there's a large negotiation going on. I would think this would be much better as part of that entire negotiation at that point.
I think you have two completely separate issues. I'm not here to discuss with you the Milani Park. It is, I don't own it. It's the county owns it. I have a first right of refusal. And whenever that option comes to you, if and when, then I'm available. I'm here to listen to what you have to say. If there is an opportunity for you to ask me, I don't know that the county will want to do anything other than the park over there, and that is the reason I sold the property to the county, for the community, for Palm Beach County, for everybody in Palm Beach County, because they paid with taxpayers' money, Palm Beach County money. So I'm not here to discuss the position of Palm Beach County, other to tell you that I have no control.
Right, no, fully understand. I wasn't recommending that we discuss that at all. However, when this agreement ends is right around the time we're dealing with Milani Park, and if the county's going to give you the option for the right of first refusal and what to do with all of that. So it seems to me that without the town or the residents getting anything for extending this, it would kind of be foolish for us to extend this now for another 20 years, going way past when that negotiation happens. I would think you'd want to look at we as the town and the residents would want to look at this in totality.
As I said, I'm not here for Palm Beach County. I'm here on my own, for my own reasons, for my own property. I have no control over Palm Beach County's property.
Right. Would you consider any sort of extension in exchange for some changes in some of the setbacks, or are you only interested in an extension as is?
As is. That is why I originally proposed some changes. And the city manager and I discussed that maybe there were problems with it. So I said, okay, leave the changes. I only want a simple extension, and that is all. There's nothing I want to change in that agreement.
Right, I understand. Okay. My general sense is it's difficult to give you an option for free without hearing that the residents are extremely comfortable with it. So I wouldn't want to do anything unless we heard, particularly from the residents around that area, on how they feel about it. And particularly since there's, again, if we gave you a 20-year extension, you can still build on it tomorrow or whenever it might be.
Well, I can still build within the time allowed.
Sure, of course, and you're 100% allowed to, and I'm sure the town would actually love the tax revenue for.
For sure. The more, the better. Okay.
But our job as the commission is to evaluate every proposal and make sure that if one resident's asking for something, we're not disadvantaging one or more other residents. And my fear is that in this case, giving an extension with getting nothing in exchange we'd be crossing that line.
I think maybe you underestimate the aesthetic value and the open space that the town has enjoyed and the residents have enjoyed for 20.
Remember,
let me finish. That they have enjoyed for the past 25 years. And the very fact that I'm here asking you for an extension is indicative that I have every intention of continuing for as long as I can for the next 20 years. I don't know what else as a benefit I can give you, but you want me to give concessions on something that is totally outside my request before you today. And I don't find that
I fully understand what you're saying, but as the old saying says, you can only ask people to do what they're willing to put in writing. And as you said, you talk about green space and the benefit to the town. There is no benefit to the town if there's no guarantee of the green space. So that's why I asked, would you be willing to amend it? And I'm not even suggesting amending the agreement. I don't know what the residents around that area wants, but I'd love to hear. But that's why I asked the question, is there in the negotiation, I give A, you give B, we'll give an extension if the residents around there wanted the green space for 10 or 15 years or something like that, but your answer was no, you just have to trust me.
No, I'm going to say to you, I have an agreement in place. I will abide by the agreement. To your point, maybe the sooner I build, the more money I make. Sure. As a business person, right? So the fact that I didn't do that, I should be recognized as well. Okay?
Understood. Okay, that ends my questions.
Wait 1 second. Commissioner Constant-Simon didn't have any comments yet.
Sure, thank you. First of all, just to make sure that we're on the right page here, I think that we are talking about a 10-year extension after the next 5 years, or rather the 5th, yeah. But it'd be after the next 5 years because that's already in place.
It's 20 years.
So the 20 on top of the 5.
After the next 5 years.
Okay, but because the synopsis on the cover page said an additional, but that's just a little misleading. So it would be on top of the 5. And the second thing, I just would like to check, I have a code book at home, which I copied the Torsivia Law Firm on 6 months ago from the 90s, and I'd like to check those codes that were in place then before we were codified on Municode and just see if there is certainly a cohesive set of codes to this contract. And then thirdly, I'd like to check Commissioner David's points with Mr. Torsivia on is this acceptable legally for us to continue, or does it roll over, or is it a new contract? If he could weigh in on that, I don't know that answer.
Well, Commissioner David raises a good point, which we've not researched as to whether this would constitute spot zoning. So if you're inclined to go down this path, then I would suggest you defer until we research it. If you're not inclined to go down that path, don't incur legal fees researching something that you don't need. But she does raise a good point.
Do you know right offhand if that's spot zoning or not, and if it's a rollover of a contract or an extension or a new contract?
Well, she's asking for an extension, and then the question Commissioner David raises is, would that be considered spot zoning based on your new code as opposed to what was in 95? And as you indicated, that would require some research to look at 95 and make that determination. And again, if the commission is not inclined to grant the extension, kind of why waste? I'm happy to do the research, but why waste the money on it?
Right, I understand. Yeah, I think that Mrs. Milani's been here, 40 40 years, you said 45 years.
Oh, yeah,
And,
45
she's a fine community member, and she's willing to work. She's got a complicated situation. So rather than just say, oh, well, we don't really care to work with you, she is a resident, a longstanding resident. So I would be inclined to get it straight for everyone. She's willing to try to keep it on behalf of the town, to keep it green, quote unquote, to whatever degree she can. But I'm more comfortable if we could know exactly the zoning and the legal situation so that we don't find ourselves in a bad situation, nor does she. So I make the motion to try to get that
Well, wait,
clarified.
we didn't all
Can we do
speak
that?
yet. We all didn't
I'm
speak
just
yet.
concerned about the setting of precedent.
Right, Evelyn.
Okay, two things. One of the aspects of an enforceable contract is that there are concessions from both sides. This would not have that. The other point is that property floods every time it rains, and if it's a big rain, it floods all the way out into the street. Quite frankly, also, why can't you build on the west side and not build on the east side? Leave the east side the way it is, because they're separate, so you wouldn't have to do it together. I would be happy to see that develop, because then if you develop it, you have to deal with the flooding.
The flooding is a very easy issue to resolve. It's flooding because the road is higher than the property across the street. FDOT never really took care of their own water, and therefore, because our lands are lower, it automatically flows into the lowest spot. I never really raised a big issue with FDOT because it is their responsibility to take care of their own water on their own highways or roads, and I sort of let it go. Whenever I develop, it will be taken care of, and they will have an obligation. They have an obligation to take care of their own flooding, of their own water, not to let it flow into somebody else's property. It's not done. It's just not done.
I am not sure I agree with that, because very often you have roads that are higher and they're sloped so that the water doesn't sit on the road and in fact does go down the sides. But that's FDOT's problem. That's not our problem.
That's what I'm saying. It's my
but
property is being flooded illegally by everybody else's water. Because there
you have
is
to
no
take that up
proper
with
flood.
FDOT. That has nothing to do with the town of Highland Beach. That's you and FDOT, much like you don't have anything to do with any negotiations on Milani Park because you're out of it.
It's not my property.
It's not your property.
No.
So she would not be involved in that negotiation at all. The only time she would be involved is if the county decided to sell it, and whatever price they decided they wanted, they would have to give her right of first refusal. And then they could negotiate a price if she chose to buy it back.
Correct. And then at that point, if she chose to, she could negotiate something with the town on what to do with
But
it. So
I
hence the
don't
reason
think
why there could be a negotiation down the
We're
road.
saying that she can't build on it regardless. You absolutely can build on it. I'm not sure I understand why the zoning codes from 1995 would apply for now. That we should apply the current zoning codes, not what was done then. And because we have this contract and we can't go back and undo it, even if they were wildly out of proportion with what was available at that time, it doesn't matter now because we can't fix it. We can't do anything about it. We're stuck with it. And sometimes in government, you're stuck with what a previous administration has done. Sometimes you can fix it and sometimes you can't. But I would like all the legal issues investigated because I have real problems with this. And I agree with you. You don't give away the cookie jar with the cookies.
Okay, I haven't made a comment yet. First of all, I don't believe, and I have to confirm this with the attorney. This was a settlement, a legal settlement. There was a lawsuit involved in this. This is a settlement. This is not a contract. It's
enforceable like a contract.
Is that the case, or?
It is a settlement agreement, which is a contract, but was entered into as a result of a lawsuit. You know, there was a lawsuit in 1984 that was settled, and then this lawsuit came in 1984, and then there was one in 1994. So this is the result of a settlement. And as a couple of the commissioners have pointed out, if you're going to reopen a settlement agreement, there's usually a give and a take. And then the questions that have been asked about what's the legal implications of opening it when it comes to the zoning. So that's why I say if you're inclined to think about granting some kind of an extension, then I suggest you negotiate something, and you also research what is the potential, spot zoning issues. But if you're not inclined, if you simply say, we have 5 years left and, that should be enough time, then there's no reason to do any legal research.
Because then she could build on it.
And then she could build on it.
She can always build on it.
You can always build on it. No, I understand. To me, and maybe I feel differently, people in this town, and I've been involved for quite a while, are very upset that we're losing green space. I even had some people call me when this was on the agenda. I just want to bring that point. When we talk about green space, it's not just for us as human beings. I mean, we're talking about more land for the animals. We're talking about the environment, our entire environment. I know quite a number of people that live in Braemar who have said that they would like to keep this, and you live in Braemar.
Yes, and that's not the feeling at all.
No? Okay. All right, maybe I know different people. I know a lot of people that like to keep the space green for as long as possible. The bottom line is, Mrs. Milani is going to build. And you're saying that she wouldn't be able to build with, again. No, I'm saying with the contract she has.
No, she can.
Yeah.
She can always build. We're not taking away her rights to build on that property. All we're doing is if we don't agree to extend it, then the setbacks that are stated in this settlement would no longer apply to anything she builds after 2025. She would have to conform to the zoning code as it is then. Not even what it is now, but what it is then.
See, my thinking is, maybe because I'm an older person, she's asking for a 20-year. No, I understand. So really, I mean, I have children of my own, and, we're talking about trusts and, what's going to happen down the line. Honestly, that's on my own belief. I feel that having something green in our town is worth something. It's worth something. But yes, we're not going to have her say, she's not giving us a date, because we don't know what's going to happen. In 10, 15 years, I could be dead. I mean, anybody, we don't know what's going to happen. I would rather, honestly, leave it green for as long as possible.
Okay.
But that's only my opinion. That's okay.
But you know what? It's very nice for people to say they want green space. And if that's the consensus of the town, then we need to have a referendum and buy some of the vacant land that's in town. You can't compel an owner of a piece of property to keep it vacant and to keep it green because the neighbors want to look at a tree. But that's not the way.
I mean, the town had the opportunity to buy Milani Park many years ago, and they didn't.
They didn't. So it's irrelevant whether they had the opportunity or not. Okay. And that property floods. I don't care why it floods, it floods. And if she builds on it, she has to correct the flooding issue.
Okay. All right, that's my opinion. I feel that we hardly have any green space anymore. But anyway, we are going to open this up to public comments. There are some people here that live in Highland Beach, but I see Mr. Rothberg. Well, no, not Bramer. They live in Boca Highland.
Good morning. My name is Michael Rothberg. I live at 3833 South Ocean Boulevard. First, I want to thank the commissioners for seeing through my two issues of my land, and they actually tie right into hers. Well, I understand you don't want to give something and not get something. I can tell you, if you back someone in a corner, they will do what you don't want. They will develop that land. What we're going to get is hopefully her staying there longer, not developing it. It's her land, it's her right. I don't know enough about the court settlement, how it came to be, but what we're getting is the option of her not building. I promise you, if she doesn't get her extension, she's going to start the process of selling that land to the highest bidder for development. Not maybe, 100%. You back them into a corner, you'll either have multifamily housing, which I could have built. People will do things to prove a point. If she wants to stay there for 20 years, and all she's saying is, look, just extend this agreement, you're getting something. You're getting the option of having that land stay open longer. Whether it's spot zoning or not, I don't know enough about it, but I could tell you, she's asking now because it's a multi-year process. They're going to start doing impact studies. How many units can I get on it? How high can I go? To make sure that she gets her permits before her extension expires. You just politely dodged a bullet with me, because people will do things that you may not like when you force them into a corner when it's their land. If it's zoned, you take the offer she's giving. We're getting something. We're getting her leaving it alone. And if she's been here 45 years, I think she's got a good reputation and a good word.
Okay, Fran.
Fred Rosen, Boca Highland. I'm a little confused. It's my understanding that we were just told that if we don't extend that, the person is going to build. Sounds like a threat to me, and I don't like that. But if the person builds, is it my understanding that they can build based upon 1995 codes?
No, they can build based upon what's in the settlement.
Okay. My other question is this. Commissioner David brought up the fact that this thing floods every time we have major rains. It's not just the flooding, it's mosquitoes. Every time you have a flooded lot that sits there for 5, 6, 7, 8 days, and in certain cases where we have major floods, it sits there, you've got a mosquito problem. So you got multiple problems here, and I'm trying to figure out, why are we being forced in to make a decision today on this thing without really researching this? Thank you.
John?
Same name, same place. Your finest hours so far. You spot it. Okay, good job. Okay, look, you guys are woefully unprepared to do something about this today. Okay, you, as Commissioner David pointed out, you've got to get Torcivia here to take a look at this, okay? And to lay out whether you're doing something legal or not. That's point one. Point two, to the mayor's point, by the way, hi, nice to meet you. I've seen your name on signs. Ms. Milani did not promise to keep it green for 5 years. She just said that if you change the rules, she's likely to exercise her option earlier than she otherwise would. Okay? So you're not doing anything to preserve. She could start building tomorrow if she wanted to, and I don't think your action one way or another really means that much in her decision. She will certainly, if she intends to build, start within the 5-year period somewhere, and then you're kind of out of luck. So you better take a look at that. Third, someone should draw a map between the zoning now and what was in the settlement And finally, my Lord, I've been using this word more in the last week than I've used it ever. You should find a hydrologist to take a look at that piece of property and see what can and cannot actually be done with it at all, okay? Because it sits right at the bottom of both hills. And all the water that gets dumped on the hardscape from here to the end of Delray and Boca on the other side just drains right in there. So, you know, you've got a lot of homework to do here. And a good idea might be to take a couple of weeks, which is what you got too, and do some of the homework and have a whole big fact sheet and distribute it to the community and let them hand it out in Boca Highlands to see what they're allowed to do now, what they would be allowed to do if it reverted to the current zoning law, etc. Okay? But finally, I don't think Miss Malani was out of line on anything. She has been here an awful long time. I've never seen her in front of this commission, so she was explaining what's in her head, and that's a good thing for a major property owner to do. Mr. Rothenberg is an expert at that. He just lets it flow, and that's healthy. So that's all I got to say.
Anybody else? Wait, John Bowden, please.
John Bowden, 3407 South Ocean Boulevard. It's very nice to meet you, ma'am. It was wonderful to hear your excellent presentation, and your poise, and you just come out as a real nice lady. And I hope that instead of trying to make decisions and talk about this and that and whether there's advantages, you know, first of all, 20 more years of leaving that place empty does have value. And so it isn't that there is no value. But I hear a citizen of our town coming to this board and saying, this thing's coming up to an end. We need to figure out what we're going to do for the next 20, 25 years. This town deserves to provide the avenues to work this out so she becomes happy, we become happy, the whole town becomes happy, and everybody's got to chip a little into the bottom. We get it. Let's put this at there's no rush. Let's take the rush out of it. Let's do what we have to do in the planning board, set up a separate committee or whatever it is you have to do. This is a major issue for this town. Let's get it right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before we continue, and we will, I just want people to know that Mrs. Malani has been asking this for over a year and a half. And it's been constantly put off for whatever reasons. Marshall wasn't even here at the time. But it's not something that's new. Okay, Mr. Hillman?
Doug Hillman. Hello, Mrs. Malani. I'm the president of Boca Highlands. So we border three sides of this property. So, well, one, nice meeting you, and thank you for coming here, and thank you for the patience. I didn't realize this went on for a year and a half. Okay, but now it's on the docket, and it's going to be dealt with. And John, spot on. Thank you. Some of the data needs to be developed as suggested, but one piece I think we should also be looking at is what would the value be of the property if it were developed? And then what would the tax revenue be from that property? So we can kind of quantify if a decision was made not to grant and it doesn't necessarily have to be 20 years. Could be 10 years, could be 15 years. So that's another consideration. I'm a big believer in green space, and I know that there are many people in our town that certainly feel strongly about green space. Don't know if that's 51% of our population or not. So green space, clearly important, but I don't know how important. And certainly we are running out of it. And yes, it would be nice to buy more green space, but I don't think that's going to happen. So yes, green space, we appreciate you're leaving it and not developing it, but developing it certainly gives us revenue. So it's a win on either side, whether it gets developed or not developed. The consideration of giving the extension is excellent. But again, as you suggested, we don't know what we're getting for it because you haven't told us that you would commit to not developing it for any length of time. So some give and take clearly needs to be developed, and that's part of a negotiation. The problem that I see is one that was brought up, obviously, is the flooding. It's the low point in town. The water flows in. There has to be something done with that water if an extension is given. We clearly can't sit for another 20 years of that water accumulating there. Whose responsibility it is, I don't know. Yeah, it comes off the road, no question, but it also rains on the property and sits there too. So somehow that has to be part of the consideration here, what's going to be done with that water and how can that be relieved? It's just gotten to a point where it can't be tolerated anymore. So I suggest the commission consider that somehow in the long-term thinking here. But my heart goes out to the request, and I think we should seriously consider it. The fact that it waited 1.5 years to get here can certainly wait a few more months while the research is done and it is considered. Speaking for the development of Boca Highland, we appreciate the green space. We definitely appreciate the Milani family. They've been a wonderful neighbor. We look forward to many more years of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Greenwald.
Rick Greenwald, Bellito. A lot of good comments today, and again, appreciate your being here. This is clearly one of those times, as several people have said now, that you should proceed slowly, deliberately, and with a lot of thought. This clearly is going to be an important project, whether it's left green, whether it's developed. There are legal issues that have come up. I don't know what's been going on for the last 1.5 years, where apparently this has been circulating at some level, but this is certainly, I've been coming to these meetings now for a while. It's the first that I've heard about this aspect of it. We heard about the county aspect of it and what they were going to do in terms of their options, but we haven't heard about this before. I would just make sure that we take the time to be deliberate, look at it from the multiple angles that have been suggested, and do our best to be as collegial as possible. We have a long-term resident who's been trying to do good things for the community, and do our best to get it right. There certainly isn't anything that has to be definitively decided today. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Goldenberg.
Eric Goldenberg, 3912 Ocean. I am not directly impacted by this property, Mr. Polani. Nice to finally meet you. You're Will the Wisp. I've heard about you for 20 years since I've been a resident. Melania this, Melania that. I think if it's this important, I think that there needs to be some negotiations, and I think this commission needs to appoint a group, whether it be us on the planning board or you and the attorney and Marshall, to sit down and negotiate this and then come back with recommendations. I don't think you can negotiate this basically in open court. I think there needs to be some focus given, and at the same time, then come back with recommendations and let the commission or the planning board or the code of adjustments or whatever then review it and then make additional commission recommendations to the commission. I think this woman is extremely smart. She has not given anything. She's given us general thoughts that maybe she'll keep it green, but she's not giving anything other than, well, I got till 2025, and in all due respect, Mrs. Malani, you're going to go through a lot of aggravation in the next 5 years if you want to build on that property. And I don't mean, that is not a threat either. It's just the physical and mental obstacles that you have to go through, not just with this community, but in general, in doing everything. We appreciate it being open, but at the same time, for all these years, you know you had an issue with flooding, and you could have easily worked with the community to get to build up that land, to cover it over with grass. And that has not happened since I've been here for 20 years. So, God, I was young when I started. Anyway, so I recommend, what I suggest is that you go back with a small group in doing negotiations and then recommendations to the community as a whole or to the commission, and do it, because other than that, as I'm doing now, wasting time and energy. Thank you.
Okay. Well, would anyone like to make any sort of motion as how to proceed?
First, I would like to move that we send this to the planning board for their input, and we send it to the attorney for his input, and we'll deal with it at a later date when we have more complete information.
I second that because that was going to be basically my motion. And I would just like to add the comment, if anybody read The History of Highland Beach by Sandy Simon, or if anyone strolled around the library, a very large percentage of the west side of Highland Beach was fill. In the 40s and late 30s, when they dug out the intercoastal, a lot of our properties used to be swampland. And it's not that that parcel actually is some kind of a catchment for water purposefully. It's because it hasn't been developed that it's that way. I know in the mayor's community, there's a photo of a large crane sinking into the swampland while they filled Regency Highland, and they had to haul it out. It took weeks. So it's not like that is a purposeful, swampy, water-gathering area. It's because it's not developed. And so I just want to point that out, that we have to remember a lot of us are living on fill and not on heavy limestone. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a second on the motion.
Okay, Commissioner David?
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby?
Yes.
And Mayor Zellniker?
No.
Okay.
Mayor, may I ask a question or a clarification on the motion? I'm still happy to vote yes on it, but when we send it to the planning board, as they've asked in the past, can we send them some detailed instructions of what they'd like them to look at, not just general to look at?
I would think that would be appropriate, yes.
So,
And the history.
You
need-
know-
No? Or you don't think so? Okay.
we need to direct them what we'd like them to look at.
I know you keep going back to history, but very often the history isn't relevant because we have to deal with the here and now. And by the way, I did not take Mrs. Malani's statement as a threat, because it's not a threat. She wants to build on the property, she's just not sure when she wants to build, and I understand that. But I'm also saying it wouldn't be horrible from a tax standpoint if she did build and fill it, as Peggy said. Also, she could stay in her house and not develop the east side of property and develop the west side. So it's not an all or nothing deal here.
Mayor, may I make just one comment? Or, no, go ahead.
Yes. No, go ahead.
First of all, Mrs. Malani, thank you for coming today, obviously. It's always great to see you. And when we send it to the planning board and we get the attorney's information as well, if there's other information, we should get it. Interesting enough, it seems like almost everyone wants it to remain as green space, so there's got to be some sort of deal that can happen here if every party is willing to give a little bit of something. So I hope we actually get to some sort of resolution where everybody's happy and everybody has confidence that what they're getting, they're going to be able to keep.
Where we closed the We're up to a motion here. Wait, can we have these comments after, because we're in the middle?
Please come to the
Wait.
podium for the public to hear
Okay.
you.
All right, okay. It's at the
Yes.
mayor's discretion. Okay, go ahead, I'll let everybody talk. Go ahead.
David Axelrod Toscana, Chairman of the Planning Board. I just want to make sure that Mrs. Malani is notified when we discuss this. At the Planning Board, we have very open discussions, and I'll be more than glad to have you.
David, would you also?
Wait, Eric, you have to get up separately. Okay.
Goldenberg, 3912 Ocean. Could we please have, when you submit information to the planning board, give us a general outline of where we stand with the agreement in terms of codes and so forth? In other words, what was the code, and is it relevant if we extend, or can we negotiate an extension with the new codes? Those kinds of things.
I'll jump in just a little
Yeah.
bit. We're predicating a negotiation for which I have yet to hear Mrs. Malani say she's willing to negotiate.
Yes.
Right, I understand that, but if it's going to the planning board, I'd like to have a little bit of background information. I mean, I would think that the board, excuse me for being so forward about that, but I think the planning board would like to know the then and
Now,
possibly
the
now.
difference between the two?
Yes, and so we have an idea rather than just discussing in a vacuum. So we're not wasting our time, Mrs. Malani's time, or even the commission's time.
I also think, as Greg said, we need instructions on this, exactly what we are going to discuss. We are not the negotiators. Marshall is the negotiator, and I think that's important to understand. We're not the negotiator with Mrs. Malani.
That's all right, it's okay. I am. I simply want to thank the commission for having taken up so much time. I didn't intend to open up a whole can of worms. I will reconsider whether I want to even to maybe reconsider my request to the town at this stage, because I see a lot of problems, opening up a whole can of worms. I'm not prepared to renegotiate, and I get the sense that I am being sort of held to ransom by certain members of the commission here with respect to Malani Park. I cannot speak to the park. It's not within my jurisdiction. I am sorry that this has opened up that dialogue or discussion, and I certainly don't intend any ill for the community. I came here with an open mind, with good intentions of keeping it the way it is for another 20 years, and here I am being asked or trying to extort from me things I can't even give. I can't even give. So I don't want to open up a whole can of worms. Thank you.
I'll make a comment. Obviously, I didn't intend at all to cause any sort of issue related to Malani Park. I was just trying to bring up every possible scenario that the residents need to be aware of in terms of the timing and sort of the coincidence in timing and some of this stuff. But certainly, we've tabled this for now. We're going to have the planning board look at it. We're going to find out what we can do, and then maybe there should be a small working group, or maybe we should just have Marshall do it. But certainly, if everyone wants green space, and Ms. Malani, you want to keep it as green space as well, hopefully we can negotiate something.
Yeah, okay, continue.
Yes, I just wanted to add that we, on the commission last year, the mayor and I, and the seated commission last year looked at this in depth many times, and Mrs. Malani has been patient, and with all due respect, being a good community member, I would just like to encourage that we look at all legal aspects in order to protect her and us, the town, on behalf of everyone in town. And then secondly, that I suggest that the commission submit questions or ideas for the planning board so that Mr. Labadie can get them together, because often we discuss something here, send it to a board, and the board says, well, what do we do with it? So let's have each of us email our concerns, our background knowledge to Mr. Labadie. It would be my idea to consolidate and present to the planning board along with whatever background is relevant. Thanks.
My final comment, I have a final comment here. I'm very concerned, and I have been for years, with the green space in Highland Beach. The town didn't take the opportunity to buy Milani Park at that time. We don't know what's going to happen with Golden City. That's not a done deal. That could very well be filled, and we can have townhouses there. We have a minimal amount of green space. And I think we're making a mistake by, maybe it could be fine-tuned, of course, and I think we can come back to Mrs. Milani, maybe, legally, what we can do. I think it's a big mistake. And it's not the land. I look at it as the environment of where we live. And all that's going on with the sea level rise. There was an article I just read, they say in 20 years, 1 billion birds will not exist. I've mentioned this a few times. I know people think it's silly, but it's not silly. We're destroying ourselves. And if we have an opportunity to keep green space in our community, and we're running out of it, pretty soon the only green space will be left is the green space at Regency Highland, which we own across the street from our building. And we have not developed it. This is up to the people in the community. I hope people are watching this, and if people really care about our town and our green environment here, come out to the next meeting. That's all I can say, but that's a personal opinion.
Mayor, I think Mr.
Yes.
Trevisi had a
Yes,
comment.
go ahead.
And I have a question for him afterwards.
I mean, I think the planning board and I and Marshall probably all have the same clarification question as to what's the point? And I hate to be that blunt about it, but if Ms. Milani just indicated, and she's indicated consistently, she didn't come here to negotiate, she came here simply to get an extension. Sounds from the commission and the residents that some issues would want to be addressed, such as a guarantee that it'll be green space for a certain number of years, that maybe the flooding be taken care of. Are those the directions that, unless she's willing to negotiate, I mean, what is there to send to the planning board? What is there for us to research? And she's indicated she might be withdrawing her request. So again, I'm mindful of not spending time, money of all the volunteers on an issue where Ms. Milani, again, with all respect, is simply saying, I want an extension. If it's an up and down vote, yes or no on the extension, then what's the point of going through all these other gyrations?
We have no way of knowing that at this point. Also, think of the effects with other properties. If you want to use Golden City, fine, use Golden City. If we allow this extension and she gets to build based on the dimensions in the settlement, and Golden City is stuck with our current code, they're going to sue us. It's very simple, because they will be harmed by not being allowed to build as high and build as many and have the different setbacks. So you have to take that into account as well. And yeah, I want green space. If Milani Park is going to be developed, we're going to have a 100-car parking lot. So what is now green will be cement or asphalt. So it's not all as simple as it seems. You're right, there are a lot of things that go into it. I think part of what I would like the planning board to do is look at this in terms of the effect on the town, but the whole effect on the town. Yeah, you need to know not what the code was, because it doesn't matter what the code was. It matters what's in this settlement agreement, and it matters what the code is now, because that's what it would be changed to. So, I mean, if there's really very little difference, then I'm not sure that we're harmed. But if there's a lot of difference, then we need to carefully look at this.
Mayor, may I ask a question of the attorney? Mr. Tressivia, you brought up a good point for, we got to send something to the planning board if we send something that's clear. Are we better off, each of us talking to Marshall and then coming back and voting on what we want to send to the planning board, opposed to all the commissioners just barraging Marshall with a bunch of questions and then he's not really sure what to send, or it could be very confusing or convoluted? I don't want to waste their time and they've got
Right.
50
I
things.
think certainly you'd want to have a consensus as to what are the issues. But again, I want to ask that threshold question. Is the first question some communication from either Marshall or myself or both of us to Ms. Milani to say, are you willing to negotiate anything? Because if the answer is no, then it's kind of a simple extension question. If the answer is yes, then what are the issues to negotiate? Is it green space? Is it flooding? But if the answer is no, and so far that's kind of what we've heard in a polite way, but a very firm way, then I come back to what's the point of, it's that old law school, how many angels dance on the head of a pin. I mean, nice exercise, but if Ms. Milani's within her right, say, I have this agreement, it grants me certain densities, it grants me certain setbacks, it grants me certain things. I have no obligation to deal with flooding, I have no obligation to deal with green space. I can build in 6 months or I can build in 20 years. Then, to me, it's really a straight up and down question. Extension period, which seems to be what she's presenting and all her right to do, or is she willing to negotiate some of those terms? So if that's the direction, that's the threshold question, I think that might save a lot of time. But again, it's up to the commission, whether you want us to go down the path, and the planning board to go down the path, not knowing if what she might be willing to negotiate.
Maybe Mrs. Milani would like to clarify that.
Well, I don't think we should put her on the spot at the moment.
No.
That makes no sense. So what I was going to ask is, Commissioner David, would you consider maybe we modify the?
No, what I would suggest is that Mrs. Milani talk to our attorney and to Marshall, and if they feel that she is not going to negotiate at all, then he's right. There's nothing to talk about.
We should just do the first part of the motion then, which is look at the legalities if we did want to extend it, but not send it to the planning board.
Yeah, because we want to protect ourselves from future lawsuits by property that's not developed at this point.
All right, there are a couple more comments from the audience.
Doug Hillman, Boca Highland. I just met Mrs. Milani, and I just listened to her at the podium twice. And the sense that I get is that she is a very accomplished businesswoman. And if the commission approached her with a reasonable offer, I would think she would be a very reasonable businesswoman and have a reasonable response. The planning board, I would think, given a series of very specific.
Put the microphone on. Is it on?
Yeah, I think
ahead.
it's on.
Go ahead.
Given, I should have pushed this up.
No,
That was
okay.
why. I think if the planning board was given a very specific list that probably one commissioner working with Marshall could provide, or a couple of you could probably knock off in 2 or 3 minutes right now, could work up. And it seems as though it's basically what is the difference between the concessions that the Milani organization was able to negotiate 10 or 15 years ago, whatever that time frame was, versus what our current codes are. That needs to be analyzed, because if they get this extension, that's what is going to be looked at by future developments. And that's really what our biggest concern is going to be. And any major developer is going to go after those. So I think that's what's got to be analyzed by the board. That's the big deal in front of us. And that might preclude our giving that extension, if that's that big of a difference, and I suspect it probably is. So I think that's the big issue. I don't know what other issue would be in front of the planning board. Thanks.
Okay, John?
Oh, one other quick
John
thing.
Bowden, yeah.
We were thinking about if we could work this out, everybody would be happy. Everybody is not going to be happy. We work this out, they're going to be unhappy people. Okay, some people want the revenue from the development, some people want the green space. We're not going to have all happy people.
John Bowden, 347 South Ocean Boulevard.
Speak into the microphone, please.
I suggest that perhaps you rethink your charge to the planning board. And the charge should be more, get a grip on this. What are the questions? What are the things we know? What are the things we don't know? Define what this is all about. Let's use that as the charge to the planning board for a starting place to go on from there.
Okay, well, we made a vote already, and we said that we wanted more investigation, right? Wait, okay, one more.
Ms. Malani, have you ever thought about selling the land to the town and the town letting you have lifetime residence there?
But you have to get up and talk, I'm sorry, because you're being recorded. And say your name and...
Michael Rothberg, one option is the town buys the land from you and gives you a lifetime option to live there. Because you have a valid point. What happens if Golden Harbor City, whatever it's called, says, why does she get a better deal? It's something that you may want to consider. It gives you your sentimental value, gives you fair market value of the land. We might have to finance it, but it's an option. I said, I don't know enough about it. That's my point.
Okay, the bottom line is we want to resolve this. We do, and we do want to be fair to everybody. And I guess we had our vote, and is there a change or any other motion? No. Okay, so at this point,
So we'll leave it to you, Marshall, to figure out what's going to the planning board with input from the commission, I think is how it stands, correct?
Something of, Linelda, could you read back the motion?
but first you have to speak with Mrs. Malani to see if she wants to proceed.
I will, I promise you I'll do
With
that
the
part. I'll
attorney.
reach out
Yeah.
to have
With the attorney.
Yeah. Mhm.
The motion is to move this matter to the planning board and to the town attorney for further research.
Okay. And then I will work with each of you to define what those questions are and summarize what happened today. Get the legal questions, I think, would be appropriate first and foremost, because if you do consider it, I want to make sure that we're not creating any zoning precedent, which would make me nervous. But if we reopen it, does it open us back up to maybe potentially those certain issues? So, but yeah, we'll reach out. We'll get it. We got it.
Yeah, but you have to speak to Mrs. Malani first.
Understood.
Understood, okay. Okay, moving on. We have the discussion on waiving... I thought we
Roll call.
voted.
Yes.
We did vote on it,
Yes.
right?
We're
Okay.
going to 12D.
Right, that's a discussion on waiving potential conflicts for the Coastal Resilience Partnership. I refer this to the town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, as we've had some basic conversations, the Coastal Resilience Partnership is a group of Southeast Palm Beach County communities working together to do a collective climate vulnerability assessment to see what we are now and into the future and those anticipations. So we initially started this group with the Florida Environmental Protection, DEP grant that was there. We explored it. We moved into phase 2, which is, okay, most of the communities that were initially part of it are still in it. We got another grant to take the next step, which is to create the interlocal agreement. So in some fashion or form, all of these players have to have our legal team review an interlocal agreement to see what we're comfortable entering in to do a collective project. With that front end or the first part of that grant, I think we brought in a student group from Harvard Law to start doing it. I think they took a really deep dive and made it very complicated. And I think a lot of the communities and our attorneys are wishing to simplify on something as straightforward as this and stay focused on a project rather than forming a long-standing group that has the power to spend money. So basically, we got that message from multiple communities, ourselves included. But at some point in time, I need Glenn to review this, the interlocal agreement, so that I can bring it back for the commission to review and approve us moving forward with the group and on this project, which is partially grant funded, to do this collective vulnerability assessment. The project is anticipating to be about a $400,000 climate vulnerability assessment. Our share is right around $25,000 in the partnership to include us as part of that bigger group. As you can imagine, Boca, Delray, Boynton Beach are paying a lion's share. Ourselves, Ocean Ridge, are still in it on the Barrier Island groups, along with, Delray and Boca also have Barrier Island components. And the county and their little enclave has their sections. Lantana is still moving forward. I forgot somebody else. Lake Worth is another big player. Thank you. I totally forgot that for a moment. And what now the current status is review the interlocal agreement. Originally, South Palm, as I had indicated to you, was going to act as the fiscal agent to save us some money. South Palm has since decided that it's not worth it to them and have withdrawn from the group for whatever reasons. I won't get into that. But Lake Worth has assumed that role. They seem to be willing to do and act as the fiscal agent and kind of coordinate the grant, if you will. But again, I can't recommend much more to you until I get Glenn to take a look at this interlocal from a legal perspective. But he has multiple clients that are also participants in this. So he needs this waiver so I can get him, because he's going to represent other communities. As always, I will squeeze him profusely to get a better deal on the review because he's doing it for multiple communities. But I just need this waiver in place so we can continue on in the partnership and have a legal review. That's the status.
Okay, we'll go into commission discussion. Commissioner David?
Okay. Am I correct in assuming that one town is not really being benefited more than any other town, and that this interlocal agreement is going to be from this group, not from town to town?
Do you want to?
And that's been one of our concerns, because you're right, if we represent this town and another town, if they have adverse interest, we can't represent anybody. My understanding, and we've tried to stay 10 feet away from this, is that there is no adverse interest, that they're all the towns have the same mindset, they're all using these grant funds, they're all contributing the same amount. I've not read the interlocal agreement on purpose because of the potential conflict, but I've heard the same thing that Marshall said from a few people. These Harvard kids were great, but they drafted a Harvard law student, document that really needs to be trimmed down. And I remember the only conversation I really had was suggesting that Boynton Beach, since they're the grant recipient, maybe their city attorney take the first crack at streamlining this, and then all the city attorneys are obviously going to look at the same thing. Of course, like he says, in terms of my fees, it's probably going to be split 3 ways. If there's 3 different cities and I'm going to spend 3 hours, it'll be an hour each or whatever the time is. But I don't foresee there being adverse, and if there is, then we'd have to just back out. But I don't think it will be.
In that case, I would waive the conflict.
Commissioner Snyder?
I agree. If the attorney feels that way, that'd be fine. I wonder, is there any planning agency involved?
No, that was a deal breaker.
Thank you.
So we do not have, that's why we have a fiscal agent in play. So one of the communities, one of the partners in the group, their accounting department will assume that role. I was not willing to offer ours, but one of the larger communities could handle this type of responsibility. Again, it's a total basically we're bidding out a collective project, and we all have to pay a share based on a formula that we all went around and around with. Again, out of the 400,000, we're 25. So as you can imagine, Boca, Delray, Boynton, Lake Worth, they're the heavy hitters, if you will, in the group and are carrying the lion's share of those costs.
Great, thank you. And secondly, just out of curiosity, why did a Harvard Law Group get tasked with this initial study?
Because they were free, and we only had $75,000
Okay,
to
then.
get a consultant in. So we did what we could to stretch the dollars and get, and it was good. That was a good exercise. They were
Okay.
really excited about it. It was good for them. But again, as you could imagine, I took a moment to reflect back in my college days when you were tasked with you made it as complicated as possible, and there's 17 different scenarios and options and backdoor relationships that come back through one agreement that would come back to a work group, and the work group would then have another sub-work group with another interlocal. It was tight, legally tight, but it was just way too complicated for what we're looking to do as a collective climate project. So we all know where our vulnerabilities are independently, and since we're intrinsically linked, our environments, no matter how much we want to say we're just the Barrier Island piece, we take the first hit, and then everything, all those impacts go to the inland areas, which we count on as our protection points. We share services with Boca and Delray. So getting an idea of how we all work forward over time, and it does provide, which I think the greatest thing is, and it'll probably be an undersold part of it, once we have this climate vulnerability assessment, it'll look at flooding, drainage, beach erosion. We will have a document that has been funded by a pilot program through the DEP. We have then the platform on which to reach out for grant dollars. And anybody that's ever worked for grants, if you do it as a group, you're number one on the list. If you do it individually, you're fighting. So if we can find ways to work collectively to do that, I think it'll be great. And I think it's very creative. The people that started this group, they've been working, all the sustainability coordinators in the area have been working and trying to get us towards this. So it's a good opportunity for us. We did budget that we would be carrying forward those dollars that were budgeted in this fiscal year for a climate study. We are under that budget amount that you guys had placed in that budget. We will be rolling that over as part of the capital budget rollover to projects that didn't get completed. So we're in good shape.
Okay, great, thank you. And I wonder if you could copy us on maybe just a basic outline of that with the communities involved.
I promise you, I know it's been sitting on my desk
Yeah,
staring at me
when available.
Yes, there's a
Thank
lot
you.
that I want to get to. I was hoping to have the interlocal. They gave us the second grant phase, they gave us an extension because our attorneys were complicating it. And
I've got to say, the attorneys are being asked to simplify, not complicate it.
I got
to
it.
stand up for my brethren on that one.
So yeah, each community, as you can imagine, have to make sure there are certain, so it's taken a little bit longer, but I will give you the background. There's so many documents. Let me
I understand.
scan through and get you a succinct description. There were a few documents that were put together for us, and our original study part is coming out shortly too. But I promise you, I do owe you
When you
that, so you
can,
do
sure.
have a good feel. I'm glad that another Barrier Island is remaining strong with us on this. So us and Ocean Ridge are kind of pushing the battle as independent Barrier Islands to continue working on these issues. So
Okay, great, thank you, Marshall.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
No comments beyond what's already been said?
Yeah, no problem. Anybody have any comments from the audience? Nope. Okay. At this time, would anyone like to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we waive any possible conflict for Mr. Torcivia with the other towns that are part of the Coastal Resilience Partnership.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner David,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bobby,
Yes.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman,
Yes.
and Mayor Zelniker.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Just,
Nick.
Lake Worth passed the same motion Tuesday night, and I think Ocean Ridge is considering it next week. So we should be good to go. And this is an exciting project for us too, because, my heart's involved in this, and I want to be able to do this. So thank you for letting me be able to do this.
That's fine. Okay, we're up to 14 Town Commission reports. And we'll start with Evelyn David.
No report.
No report. Okay, Commissioner Gossett-Seidman
No report, thank you.
and Vice Mayor Greg Bobby.
3 for 3, no report?
We make it for 4. No report by me. Town Attorney report.
I've been making unanimous. No report so far, Mr. Marshall.
Okay, we're on to Mr. Marshall, our town manager.
I can't not pass up making a few comments, mostly as a follow-up to some public comment earlier, and I think the community deserves some follow-up on it. Asked why aren't we sounding the alarm? Well, there's nothing to sound an alarm about. Hopefully the cameras catch. There's nothing to sound the alarm about with our water system. The way the federal government arrangement works, the EPA solicits information. They don't create, they don't do anything outside of take information from each of the states. Now, in the state of Florida has designated Palm Beach County Health Department as our agency rep as appointed by the state to collect all of our data and information. The county collects that information as it relates to our water quality sampling requirements that are required by federal law for every water treatment plant across the country. We, under state law, have to give it to county of Palm Beach. So Palm Beach County takes our information, and then they give it to the state gives it to the EPA. So when we see stuff as, we're getting this information that we're just arbitrarily soliciting Palm Beach County to give our information. No, we are required and obligated to provide them that information. Now, once we give them that information, it becomes their responsibility to report it up that chain of command, and then the EPA is more of a warehouse of data. Their data is wrong. It's erroneous. The county is saying, we don't know why they have this. We've reached out to the county. They're going to get us a response next week. If you even notice that, you see that they've reported a copper result in the lead category. That's why earlier in the week, we provided the lead and copper testing from 17, which are in question, and the ones we just completed. The individuals' homes that we go into and collect that data, of course they know because we walk into their homes. So we give them the data after we collect it. So we don't have a lead or copper issue. We're going to take it a step further. We're testing our sources of water. So we're going to go to all of our spigots that we supply it into the system and take a sample. But again, lead is not generated in source water. It's coming through the fixtures, your plumbing fixtures in your properties. And when we get a spike, we let that individual know because we're in their home saying, hey, we've got an issue. Following up with that even further, we'll post this on the website as well. If we need to do this, we'll keep posting stuff. Our membranes remove all of these items if they were in the source information. That's why it's a microfiltration water plant. It goes down to a micron size. It takes out heavy metals. So the manufacturer of the equipment is sent us something that the membranes take it out. So even if it was in the brackish water that we pull out of the ground 1,800 feet down, we would take it out with the membranes. So it's not in the water. But we'll give you some more tests to show you. Your water is safe to drink. I don't know. The EPA can apologize for themselves with their errors. I don't know what to tell you. But again, that's why the alarm wasn't sent, because we have followed the protocol established by the federal government and the state to get it to the county. The county responded to us and told us that their site is erroneous. There's nothing wrong with your water per the protocols and the data reports that we've furnished. We have furnished those yearly in an annual water quality report, which every water treatment plant facility has to provide. We provided that back out. We don't have these issues that are being predicated. What we have is a bad EPA site, which even on their site says that sometimes our data is wrong. Let us know if we screwed it up. Well, we've told them they're working on this and they're going to give us a response. But even the county, when they look at the website that you're seeing in your emails, they looked at it and said it's totally wrong. So there is no alarm bell to be sent. There's nothing wrong with our water. It's a state-of-the-art facility. I know some people don't like the taste of the water. There's only so much we could do with the taste of the water, even though that we've won awards based on taste. It's as good as we can do by going to the aquifer that we went to. On the website, we've also had we put up a description of the facility. So if you really want to know what all the pieces are to this puzzle, we have a great article that was put out into a local magazine of plant operators that went and describes every piece of equipment, what we have, how we do it, why we did it, why we changed to this aquifer that we are, why we built this facility in the first place. So I know that, this could look alarming that, oh my gosh, the EPA, but their site's wrong. I don't know. And the people that we're responsible to report to are saying that it's wrong. So we'll get some more information on that. I don't know how to address a cover-up. There is not a cover-up. We're not covering anything up. All of our data is available. We put it out on the website last night. If you need more information, we'll be more than glad to provide it. Just reach out to us. We're going to put up the other thing from the membrane operators. EPA is going to respond to us next week. We have all the tests. I remember something passed around, why don't we use an independent laboratory? We do use an independent laboratory. I just, if we've failed somewhere, maybe it's we haven't spent enough time communicating on how we treat water, what each plant component is, how that's all treated, and we're going to work on that. The guys in the Public Works Department are going to come in and do a presentation, so, we'll walk you step by step from where it hits the well, where it comes out, and how it comes out into your faucet, and each of the steps and all the requirements. But I really have to tell you, there's nothing wrong with your water. I have an obligation to you as the commission and you as the community. There's nothing wrong with your water, okay? You spent a ton of dough on this place, and it is top-notch, and we're paying those. I can't speak to why a federal agency makes an error. But we will get to that quickly with them. Again, Mr. Garcia, he is the person that we are responsible to report to. That's why he's involved, and we've shared those communications from him. So your water system is fine. Your plant is operating as designed. You've continued to make the necessary improvements and investment over time as a community. The facility's working great. So I just want to make sure that is, because I understand that there's concern from the website, but there isn't an alarm bell. There's nothing wrong with the facility. So I just want you to, rest assured when you take a shower, you drink, you make some food tonight, or you put ice cubes in your drink, you're fine. They're all good. Everything's going to be okay. We're going to clean up that error on the EPA website. But we've provided all that additional information back through our website in an e-blast. So I beg you, please, to take a look at it. Usually I won't make such a comment on potential community-wide emails. But again, this is a public health, welfare, and safety issue. I can't let it continue and go without being responded to. So again, there's nothing wrong with your water treatment plant. Everything's fine. Your water's good. When we do have issue, you will be the first people to know. The community will know if there is an issue. Because if there is, I got to tell you to boil the water, right? Or if it's not coming out of your faucet, we got a problem, we got to fix it. And we go each year into these capital projects and we say, here's how we got to fix the well, and here we got the permits that, everything we do is federally watched. We take samples on the hour. We sample water hourly. It's constant. We have a laboratory over there where we do water quality sampling, plus we send it out to private labs. So there's nothing wrong with your water. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further business, I call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 4:11 in the afternoon. I need a motion for the adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye, thank you.
The water is safe to drink.
I refilled my bottle of water with my tap water.
Well, that's why we have at the end of it, that's why they come in, we have a remineralization process, because we take everything out of it. Water's almost distilled water after we treat it.